This is the Canon R5C. It shoots 8K, 60 frames per second, internal RAW. Is it worth the hype? Keep watching to find out. What's up, guys? Coming at you with an honest review of the Canon R5C. I've had this camera for about 5 or 6 months now, and I've put it through its paces, and I wanted to bring you guys this video to let you know my thoughts, the good, the bad, and is this camera worth your money in 2023? Is it a worthwhile investment? We're gonna find out. Now, I want to preface this video by saying that everybody is gonna have different use cases for the gear and the cameras and the lenses and all of that they need to use. Depending on the situation that you're filming in, whether you're doing corporate work, talking head videos, documentary style work, more cinematic film work, working with small crews or large crews, or maybe by yourself, which is generally how I film, you're gonna have a lot of different needs and requirements, and certain pieces of gear are gonna work better in certain situations, and they're not gonna work so great in others. So bear that in mind as you watch this video, because my situation is going to be different than yours. It's very specific to my filming criteria, which may not necessarily align with your filming criteria. So that being said, what is my filming criteria? I'm really kind of a one-man band, run and gun style shooter. I do a lot of corporate work, so at times, the cameras are on tripods, and I can really set up the lighting and have time to fiddle with things and work with more manual focus lenses. But other times I need to be filming events and I need to be moving around a lot. And so I need gear that's gonna keep up with those sort of situations, changing subjects quickly, changing environments quickly, number of lenses, well balanced, can I put them on a gimbal, so on and so forth. So I kind of, go back and forth between the more run and gun event style shooting and more in the studio, corporate, talking head style videos, kind of like this one. So before I got the R5C, I actually already had 2 cinema cameras. The red Komodo, which as you can see, I have rigged up a pretty hardcore here. Side handles, a follow focus system, a monitor, a V-mount battery, rails. Yeah, this is a pretty full rig. This is my real workhorse camera that can handle pretty much anything I throw at it. However, I don't use it all the time because it is such an expensive piece of gear that requires a lot of work, and I tend to charge clients quite a bit more for this. So I don't use it in every situation. This here is the Canon C70. It's a much more compact cinema camera, much more lightweight. It comes with this nice top handle. It's actually got a pretty decent screen, so I don't typically have to rig it up that much. However, this is not a video about the Komodo or the C70. This is a video about the R5C. So you might be asking, if I already had the Komodo and I already had the C70, which pretty much covers my bases, why do I need the R5C? First of all, both of those cameras can't take photos. So I really did need a hybrid camera that could easily switch between video and photo, regardless of the situation. Because at events, I, in many cases, need to quickly switch over and take photos. Even, in corporate situations, even if I'm shooting a talking head video, I may want to take some photos of the environment or, the particular person who's being filmed might want some additional photos of them taken, or maybe there's going to be an event associated with that filming. So in any case, I need to be able to quickly switch between photos and video, and I needed a real powerful hybrid camera that could handle that. Being that I was investing in getting into the Canon RF mount system, I was very familiar with the C70, and I knew that the R5C had the same great menu system as the C70. It actually has a little switch on the top that goes from photo to video mode, and the menu system actually switches depending on which mode you're in. And when you're in the video mode, it's the same system as the C70. I actually think that Canon's video menu system is pretty much the best out there. It's very intuitive, very easy to learn. I'm not a big fan of the photo menu system, but I could live with it. Now, on top of all that, both the C70 and the Red Komodo do not shoot in very high resolutions. The Komodo is 6K, whereas the R5C goes up to 8K. And not only 8K at 24 or 30 frames per second, but 8K at 60 frames per second. And like the C70, you can shoot internal Canon RAW light in 8K, 60 frames per second. That's right, internal 8K RAW. So, it seems like the R5C is a hybrid dream camera, right? Well, not so fast. Now, in order to get the most out of the 8K 60 frames per second internal RAW, you need to use an external battery. Autofocus on lenses does not work in 8K 60 if you are not using an external battery source. The little piddly Canon internal batteries just do not output enough power to have the camera shoot in 8K 60 and also control the motors of autofocus lenses. So that is a big bummer. At first, when I was using this camera, I didn't mind rigging it up and using an external battery, like an FX Lion or a small V-mount battery. Some of these batteries, like the FX Lion, you can actually just literally put them in your pocket. But then I got into a couple situations where the cable would get caught on things. It was very difficult to run and gun with that cable connected to the battery and going into the camera. And then it kind of hit me. The reason that I got a camera like this, or I wanted a hybrid photo video camera that was fairly small, lightweight, was so that I didn't have to rig it up. And the thing is, if you're using the R5C in video mode with the internal Canon battery, that tiny little LP battery, you're literally going to get only 30 to 45 minutes of runtime. I did a test recording at 4K 60 frames per second in XAVC, so not even recording RAW or 8K. The camera shut off after literally 32 minutes. That is pretty much unacceptable. Now, on top of these battery issues, to shoot 8K 60, you have to be in RAW mode. Even RAW light, the file sizes are massive. On a half a terabyte or 512 gigabyte CF Express card, you're only going to get about 25 minutes of 8K 60 RAW. If you drop down to 6K 60 frames per second or 24 frames per second, you're going to get maybe about 30 to 35 minutes, but then it's going to crop into the sensor, so you're forced into a Super 35 mode. Then same thing with the 4K or so RAW, it's going to crop into more of like a micro four thirds mode. So if you want to use 8K in full frame and you don't want to shoot RAW, then you're forced to use H.265, which is just a horrible codec to edit in, and you're limited to 30 frames per second. You can't get the full 8K 60 frames per second in that H.265. You only get the full 8K 60 using internal RAW. So when you stop using RAW and you switch over to H.265 or even XAVC, your frame rate and recording resolution options become far more limited. But the battery life doesn't actually improve at all or barely if you're not shooting RAW. So you're pretty much forced to use an external battery at all times when filming with this camera. The only time you're going to get some decent battery life is when you're in photo mode. Additionally, this camera comes loaded only with Canon Log 3. It doesn't have Canon Log 2 like the C70, and I have no idea why Canon won't put this into the R5C. I find that Canon Log 2 is a much flatter color profile, and it just has more dynamic range, and the results that I get color grading with it, I just almost always get better results than when I grade with Canon Log 3. Now, if you shoot RAW with the R5C and you're editing in DaVinci Resolve or Premiere Pro, you can choose Canon Log 2. But if you're going to be shooting in any other format other than, outside of RAW, XAVC or H.265 or H.264, you can only use Canon Log 3. You're not going to get Canon Log 2. So the big question on your mind is this camera worth it? Is it worth the price? Over $4,000. Is it worth it? And my honest opinion is no, it's not. I'm actually planning to sell my R5C, as much as I hate to say that, as much as it pains me to say that, because 8K, 60 frames per second, internal RAW is amazing. But I don't always need that much resolution and frame rate and RAW recording capabilities. Maybe I just want to shoot 6K. Or maybe I want to shoot 4K RAW, but without a crop. Or maybe I just want a camera that's not going to turn off after around 30 minutes on the internal battery. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this honest review of the R5C. I'm going to see you in the next one, which sadly is not going to be shot on the R5C.